Or is there?
Recording in progress.
Start over. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the Board of Adjustments meeting to order. It is 1:30 on December 5th. Can we have a determination of quorum, please?
Rob Pierce,
Present.
Don Christensen, Peter Gashan,
Present.
Kathy Julian,
Present.
Leo Harishny is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you all please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can we please have the ethics law announcement?
Thank you. Board members are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the board today, you've received a gift or a loan, you have a pecuniary interest, you have a commitment in a private capacity such as family, employment, business, or similar relationship, or you've provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year, you must disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. You must furthermore abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it's clear the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Board members are also reminded that under the Board of Adjustment rules, if you've had any contact outside this meeting with any person interested in a matter coming before the board, you need to disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting. This meeting is being held on Zoom and in person. You can log on to the Zoom webinar using the link found on the agenda and join by typing zoom.us into your browser, clicking join a meeting, and entering meeting ID 872-156-75749. You can also join this meeting via telephone only, 1-669-900-9128, and meeting ID 872-156-75749, and pressing pound. If you wish to provide public comment via Zoom, log into the Zoom webinar and use the raise hand feature. To provide public comment via telephone, press *9 to raise hand and *6 to mute and unmute.
Thank you. Please let the record state that Leo just showed up. It is 1:32. Can we have the appeal procedure, please, Mr. Lloyd?
Most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-3610 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee.
Thank you. This time I'd like to open up public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
There is no general public comment in chambers, and on Zoom, there are no hands raised.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, we've had one change. It has been requested that the Bryan Canyon Road Pond be moved up to second place, so I would like to do that. Can we get a motion to approve the amended motion or amended agenda?
Peter Gashan, for the record, I make a motion to approve the December 5th agenda as modified.
And this is Rob, I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed say nay. All right, wonderful. And we're going to move on to number 7, approval of November 7th draft minutes. Everybody get a chance to look at that. Do we have any changes? If we don't, can I get a motion to accept as written?
Leo Harishny, for the record. I move that we approve the draft minutes from Thursday, November 7th, 2024, as printed.
This is Rob, I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, that moves us on to number 8A. This is an appeal of decision, case number WSTR 21-0283, and it has been postponed until a later date, so we will close that until it comes back to us. We're moving on to 8B, which is what I just said. It's the Bryce Canyon Road Pond and Restoration. It's case number WSUP 24-0015. Mr. Lloyd, could you please announce it?
Yeah, for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit for major grading resulting in up to 6 acres of land disturbance, 14,754 cubic yards of cut and 14,753 cubic yards of fill to create a dam structure to build a pond and rectify illegal grading. The application includes a request to vary grading standards to allow for more than a 10-foot of difference from the natural grade. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Senior Planner Courtney Wyke.
Courtney, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Just the red button. No. Smarter than the remote. Okay. Thank you all. Courtney Wyke, Senior Planner. The item before you today is WSUP 24-0015 for Bryan Canyon grading. There we go. Okay, the applicant's request is for a special use permit for major grading. Oh, it's going on its own. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. For major grading resulting in up to 6 acres of land disturbance, 14,754 cubic yards of cut, and 14,753 cubic yards of fill, to create a dam structure to build a pond and rectify past illegal grading. The staff report erroneously included a request to vary the grading standards to allow for more than 10 feet of difference from the natural grade. That's actually incorrect, as Article 438 grading has or was recently amended, and this no longer requires a request to vary the standard. Instead, it is allowed with approval of a SUP for major grading, which is the subject of this request. So apologies for that oversight. Okay, the subject parcel is 346.48 acres and is located at 0 Bryan Canyon Road. The parcel has a regulatory zone of general rural and is mostly undeveloped with some dirt gravel access roads, a partially graded pond, which is the subject request, and wells. Immediately adjacent parcels predominantly have the same regulatory zone as general rural, with the exception of parcels located north of the site being zoned medium-density rural. Most of the general rural parcels are undeveloped, and there are single-family homes in the medium-density rural designation. The application is in response to a code enforcement violation from 2020 for illegal grading. The applicant subsequently submitted a special use permit application, WSUP 21-0024, to resolve the illegal grading. At the October 7th, 2021 Board of Adjustment public hearing, the requested special use permit was denied. In March of 2023, code enforcement staff issued an administrative penalty notice citing there has been no attempt to rectify the grading of the pond and that corrective action needed to be taken to avoid further enforcement. In response, the applicant has modified their special use permit request by reducing the size of the pond and dam from the previous submittal, which had proposed 9.6 acres of land disturbance and approximately 30,000 cubic yards of cut and fill, nearly double the amount of proposed grading for today's request. The request is to construct a 1-acre pond and to remedy the open code enforcement violation for illegal grading. The grading would be up to 6 acres of land disturbance, and as I previously cited, around 14,000 cubic yards of cut and fill to create the dam structure to build the pond. The property owner is intending to remedy the prior work that was completed without a permit. And the filing of this special use permit application shows the applicant's due diligence in completing the work in compliance with the development code, and enforcement action has ceased pending the outcome of the Board of Adjustment hearing today. The proposed grading for the pond totals approximately 1 acre, with approximately 6 acres of restoration grading and planting, which is around 1.7% of the total site. The grading plan utilizes on-site soil and does not depend on the import of additional soil material. The maximum depth of the pond is 8 feet and impounds 4.998 acre-feet of water at the maximum water elevation. There are 2 existing wells on the property, immediately adjacent to the proposed pond location. The owner has identified a pertinent water rights that they propose to utilize for this pond. Water right change applications must be approved by the Nevada Division of Water Resources for these water rights to be usable for this pond. As I have already previously stated, the applicant is proposing up to 6 acres of ground disturbance with cuts of up to 16 feet of cuts up to 16 feet and fill up to 16.4 feet to even out the pond bed and adequately contain the water. Here are the cross sections for the proposed pond that were included as images in the staff report. As you can see, the cuts of up to 16 feet are located in the northern portion of the proposed pond. Due to the location of the pond behind the hill, the proposed grading will have no impact on view sheds from Washoe Valley as demonstrated in the above images. Public and agency comment, there were 37 properties noticed within 1,000 feet of the subject parcel. We received I believe it was 5 comment letters from 4 different public commenters. Comments predominantly cited concerns with the adequacy of the dam structure and potential flooding, as well as confusion over the applicability of the previously denied special use permit and code enforcement action. Staff has corresponded both verbally and in writing, and responses were included in your packet as Exhibit B. All applicable agencies reviewed the request and provided no opposition. Recommended conditions of approval have been incorporated appropriately. Staff does believe all the required findings can be made and have provided, I have provided a possible motion for your consideration, and it looks like the motion hasn't been updated on this version, but just prior to the meeting, I was made aware that there were 3 discussion kind of narratives within the engineering's memo that were accidentally incorporated as conditions, and those are not to be actual conditions of approval. Instead, they just are discussion items before and you can see that within the engineering's memo. And those conditions to be removed or recommended for removal are 2A, B, and X. Those were not intended to be formal conditions of approval, rather they were labeled as discussion in the engineering memo. And so with that concludes my presentation, and I can advise you as to how to make the possible motion with the addition of removing 2A, B, and X. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Would they like to make a presentation?
The applicant is present, however, they do not have a presentation today, but is available for questions.
Okay. If you could work on getting that amended motion while we're doing public comment, that would be great. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open up public comment. Do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment in chambers for this item, and on Zoom, there is 1 hand raised. Jeffrey Phillips, if you could please unmute and state your first and last name for the record.
Yes, my name's Jeffrey Phillips, and I own the property at 0 Bryan Canyon Road. My nearest neighbor is Stan Haskell, and I think our primary concerns related to the adequacy of the dam in the event of a failure. The water washes down the canyon directly on my property and Stan's, and there's a small culvert there at Bryan Canyon Road where it turns into dirt and goes up that canyon. It fills up fairly significantly even when there is just heavy rain or snow that's melted. So that's my primary concern. Of course, our proposal would be that those would be enlarged so that in the event that there was a failure, at least the carrying capacity of those culverts would be more appropriate for that event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do have one more public comment in chambers.
Come on up, sir. You're up. Just please state your name for the record.
Excuse me, it's hard for me to hear. Anyway, my name's Stan Haskell. I own the property right next to Mr. Hurry's land. I provide easement so that he can get to his land. And I am concerned because I'm a what-if kind of guy. I admire the fact that somebody wants to improve their land and make it beautiful. Although, in 2017, we had a very large storm. It snowed first. I don't know if anybody here remembers that, but it snowed for a couple of days. We had 2 feet of snow on the ground. Then it rained consistently for 3 days afterwards. Okay, the water could not run off the mountain. It entered the creek, took rocks, boulders, sand, and everything, and filled up I have a 36-inch by 50 culvert that runs, through it's not a bridge, it goes underground, and then it goes down to a 24-inch culvert. Lots of rocks and sand got in there, and after it was all over, it almost filled it up. I spent a long time trying to clean it all out. But at the same time, it could have been very bad. And this is just from runoff. But when we're adding a dam or a reservoir or a lake or a pond up there, you're adding to a problem that could possibly happen. I don't know if any of the engineers have looked at my culvert, but all the water shed from the mountains, from John Hurry's land to my property, go through a 36-inch pipe. Then it goes into a 24-inch pipe. So dams and levees break all the time with the best of engineering. The best. I don't know who's doing his engineering, or even if there was an impact report done for this project, but I doubt it. I saw what could happen if something should break in a levee or a reservoir. It would, especially, what is it? He wants to do 1 acre at 10 feet deep. That's a large pocket of water that could add to the problem. So it would take out my road, possibly my house. That much water came down that fast. And I wanted you guys to, consider that in this proposed dam. And like I say, they break all the time. I'm not saying it would, probably wouldn't, but it could. And I'm concerned,
Understood.
very
Thank you.
concerned, because I'm less than a mile away.
Your time's up. Thank you. The clock has expired.
You had your 3 minutes.
A message, what?
No, you're done. We got to get the next person.
Oh, okay, you
Yeah.
want to get, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's fine.
okay.
Anyway,
Thank you.
There it is.
That's okay. Got it.
Thank you, sir. Next in chambers, I have John Carey.
Hi, my name is John Carey. I'm on Franktown Road. Two comments. One, this is a 1 acre pond with fish in it, but how's the thing circulate? how do you get, how is this pond going to have circulation so that it doesn't become a mosquito-infested green bleh? So that's my first question, and there is no electricity up there. So I don't know how the heck he's planning on circulating the water. The next point was, and I put in a comment in that part of it is a release of liability of the county so that he is 100% liable for anything that happens to that dam. Well, in that case, he should be required to have a $10 million liability policy so that if anything does happen, people have some protection. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If there is no further public comment in chambers and no hands on Zoom, we can close public comment.
Okay, at this time, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions with the planner or whoever, staff. Do we have any
I
questions?
have some questions for staff.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Kathy Julian for the record. Could we have Ms. Courtney come up and explain those 3 conditions that were removed? I have them on my screen here, but I just want to confirm that they're the ones I'm thinking of.
Do you have it out? I'm actually going to maybe turn this over to Janelle Thomas in engineering. I haven't had a chance to review those in detail because I was just made aware prior to the meeting, so maybe you could explain that.
Yeah. Janelle Thomas, Senior Licensed Engineer for the record. Yes, so when we write our engineering response memos to our applications, we have separate sections for discussion items and then also for conditions of approval. In error, a couple of the discussion items got placed under the conditions of approval. Those are, just for your information, Commissioner Julian, 2A as in apple, 2B as in boy, and 2X as in xylophone. Does that make sense, and does that provide enough clarity?
Okay, so we're talking about the applicant shall indicate on all the plans that the exported materials will be taken and a grading permit shall be obtained for the import site. So that was one.
That's one, and then the second one is exported materials shall not be sold without the proper business license. And
Right.
yeah, and then if you proceed through the
X
staff
is about the
report,
permitting.
yes,
And I wasn't exactly clear what this was, but this is just talking about the different water permits, right?
yes, yes. And it was just informational more than a specific condition. So we just
Yes,
wanted to bring that to the attention of the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
A follow-up question to that was, there was a letter from the, one of the members of the public that wondered why about the water permitting process and questioned the use of water for non-irrigation purposes. Can you enlighten a little bit on that, or is that an issue?
So use of water rights or dedication of water rights is outside of the purview of Washoe County Engineering. Those issues are addressed directly by the State of Nevada Department of Water Resources. And so they will be required to provide documentation that they have adequate water rights and that they are being used in the proper manner as well. And
Okay,
that-
thank you.
Yeah,
And
that
if we
information
could-
will come from the state.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And perhaps if Courtney would like to address there was an issue of the liability raised by one of the public commenters that the county has their liability assured that they will not be liable for any damage from a possible dam failure. But where does the public and the people downstream from this, how are they assured that they're not going to be looking at someone who doesn't have sufficient liability coverage for any dam failure? I appreciate that the county taxpayers are off the hook for this, but what about those property owners downstream?
Elizabeth Higman for the record. This is certainly something that you can weigh into your factors. The county can only waive its own, or the county can only require the waiver of liability as to the county. And so, ultimately, it becomes a private party to private party liability situation.
Is there, all right, and then is there scope for the Board of Adjustment to make some mitigating provision about that liability to those downstream people?
To the extent that a condition could be incorporated that maintains the appropriate, nexus and proportionality to this project, which I'm not certain that the facts are in the record that would allow that to be done at this point. But, so yes, with the qualifier of, it has to be proportional to this project specifically.
Right, okay, and as I understand it, okay, then, all right, thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, a follow-up question, one more for Courtney. I understand that there was no neighborhood public meeting for this particular SUP, but there had been a neighborhood meeting for a previous one, or is there no neighborhood meeting when a party proposes to build a dam? I understand there's no neighborhood meeting for grading, but this is actually building a dam. There's no neighborhood meeting for that?
If I may respond, and thank you for the question, Board Member Julian. Yeah, we have a list of standard applications that require neighborhood meeting noticing, and the applicant must host neighborhood meetings. That's not the case for grading on residential properties. So really, it's a matter of size and scope of a project to whether or not it would trigger the need for a neighborhood meeting. I'm not aware that when this came around the first time that I'm not aware if there was or was not a neighborhood meeting. But again, for these types of applications, Washoe County does not require neighborhood meetings.
If I may also, Chair, what is before the board is the grading specifically, because this board does not issue a dam permit. That comes from the Division of Water Resources with the state.
Peter Gishon for the record, but is an SUP required to construct a dam prior to making the state application?
For Washoe County, it's a matter of triggering the threshold for volume of grading. We do not issue a special use permit specifically for a dam. That's not something that we have a mechanism for. However, the state is very clear that if it meets the criteria under the state definition of a dam, it goes through a very robust process through the state. In this situation, though, it simply is a matter of the volume of grading that triggered the special use permit request before you.
So irrespective of what the grading is for, we're only here to discuss grading.
Well, again, the nature of the grading, yes, will involve the construction of a pond and clearly a dam. And it's up to our engineering staff, their professional staff, to make sure that it complies with the standards imposed for such a design, such a construction, to ensure that it's constructed properly without that it, and again, I would, if you have specific questions about the design, I would invite engineering staff to respond.
And does the building permit itself go through the county or go through the state?
The grading permit would, in fact, come through the county, yes.
And then the dam permit?
Janelle Thomas, for the record. This, as currently depicted in the design in the application, would not trigger a formal dam permit. It does not meet the criteria for a state dam permit due to the height and also the volume. But I will assure you that staff has taken very diligent steps to condition the project such that those analyses that are typically required by the state for a formal dam permit have been incorporated into the proposed conditions of approval.
Which is why timber has 72 conditions
Yes,
in the staff report.
that would be correct.
Okay, okay, I get it.
Leo Harishny for the record. You're mentioning that there are criteria for triggering whether a grading is considered forming a dam or not. What are those criteria? Is this a matter, because I'm getting a sense, or not getting a sense, but I have to wonder, reflecting, is this a condition, or is this a situation where enough grading is going on to keep them below official formal standards and protections, precautions, and liability for a dam?
I'll let Janelle handle.
Janelle Thomas, for the record. Yeah, so there are thresholds within our development code which identify when a special use permit is required. This particular project is moving that volume of dirt and that depth of dirt, which does require a special use permit. That is why the application was presented as you see today. Does that answer your question?
Not really. I'd like to know what is that cutoff? If Trevor is describing,
Right.
and you're telling us how staff is treating this non-triggered, I mean to use the word, but responsive level of earth moving below whatever the county's.
Are you referring to the code enforcement action?
No, I'm just referring to what is that number? So this one is
Oh,
what,
okay.
upwards of 15,000 cubic yards. So how many cubic yards does it take before it becomes a?
So the question is whether or not this triggers the definition. Does this meet the state's definition of a dam? I think that's the question that you're asking.
That's fair.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the state's definition of a dam is a structure greater than 20 feet in depth,
Wow.
as well as containing 20 acre-feet of water
Wow.
or more.
Dang.
If I may, this is Greg Steffield with Resource Concepts. I'm the engineer that developed the application package. To tag on to what Janelle said, this is the graphic from State Department of Dam Safety. And, oh, okay. So the yellow area is non-jurisdictional. And as you can see, we are well below the jurisdictional size. We're approximately, let's just say 5 acre feet of storage, and the levee around the north end is about 10 feet. So we're well below the jurisdictional size for the state. I have been in contact with Keith at Dam Safety. He has a copy of all the exhibits that were submitted to the county. And he's come back with a couple of questions. So we have been coordinating with the state on this.
How long have you, Leo Harishny for the record, how long, sir, have you, so this project, when were you involved? Were you involved from the initial earth-moving attempts and the initial water structure, or were you only brought on board for this second subsequent SUP?
I was just brought on for the second subsequent SUP.
For the record, Leo Harishny, I'd like to know what was the initial, can we know or do we know what was the initial size of the water structure, the water impoundment that had initially been expected or anticipated?
With the permit that came through several years back, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Let me, if you don't mind asking additional questions.
Sure.
Moving on, I will find out that information.
Okay.
Did you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, go ahead, Dawn.
I believe, Courtney Waikey, for the record, senior planner. I believe I had mentioned this in my staff presentation, if I am hearing your question correct. The previous proposal had 9.6 acres of land disturbance,
Okay.
29,062 cubic yards of cut, and 29,000 cubic yards of fill, and the subject today is 14,000. So that's related to the grading. I can't tell you, I don't have the specifics on the height from the previous one. I don't know if that's what Mr. Lloyd is looking at, but I can do that next.
All right, thank you.
Greg Stedfield, the record again. Based on the grading that was done back in 20, it appears that the original size was roughly 6 acres. A majority of the grading that is part of this application is to restore the grade outside of that 1 acre footprint and actually revegetate it and kind of restore it to the way it was, as close as we can. There's no import, no export. It's all going to balance on site. So there's no concern about issues such as that. I'd also like to add that the exhibits that were in the application are not final designs. We still have to go through a final design process with review with Washoe County. So this is not as presented. It's going to evolve. And some of these items that are in the conditions of approval are certainly going to be incorporated into the design. We intentionally tried to, and I think we were pretty successful about diverting most of the surface runoff around the pond so it would not go in the pond and potentially cause an issue. But there are things that can be added to it, such as, a rock spillway. If it gets to a certain level, it can go over the side in a controlled fashion, as well as, through the O&M process, the operations and maintenance of the pond, maybe it gets drawn down in the winter for any extra capacity that it may need. There's a lot of things that can be done.
So who and when does that determination of the operations and maintenance policies, when does that happen? And who determines that?
That is through Washoe County and is part of the review process for the grading plan. And then we can't grade until that gets approved.
Leo Harishny, for the record, I don't know if I can ask this of the people in public comment. I wasn't necessarily clear. Is the owner, I assumed that because of how this was described as 0 Bryan Canyon Road, and we went to the location, I falsely assumed that the last property on that street is the property that is owned by this property owner. Does the person who's doing this actually live on Bryan Canyon Road? Does he live on his property or does he live elsewhere? I'm not clear based on the public comment here and from what I'm seeing necessarily that this person who's doing this is physically tied to this property.
Greg Stedfield, for the record, there is no structure on the property.
So the property owner is, okay.
Correct.
I don't think that. I don't think we should take that into consideration. I don't think that matters.
Well, I think it can be relevant, given the geography and the topography, and of the consequence that it would be, if if there are actual.
Please speak into the microphone.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you.
If there are structures that are going to be, directly negatively impacted, and again, looking at that site in that location, my first thought, and initially going up there, was somebody on their property wanting to add, improve, alter the existing landscape to have their own property they can access. Going up there, there is a physical gate. It is not clear that the access road there is a public access. It appears that the access road belongs to the timber-formed residence that is right there at the head of the canyon. So I guess some of my question has to do with how this is presented as 0 Bryan Canyon Road. And when I look at what I assume is 0 Bryan Canyon Road, and that person is connected to this large piece of property that they're working on, I do think that if they've got some skin in the game, that to me does kind of bear on, my consideration, or not, as opposed to somebody who is remotely, and thank you for Leo Harishny again for the record. I have a question about the water rights and the idea that this whole concept has to be or needs to be created in order for them to maintain water rights. I have zero understanding or zero expectation. I certainly understand that is legislatively required or expected, but as an uninformed person, that has no common sense to me. That makes no sense that someone would have to go to tens of thousands of dollars of trouble, at least 2 applications, just so they can dig a hole in the ground and have water exposed to evaporate to the air from the ground where it was. So I am open and willing to be informed as to the expectations or processes of water rights.
Well, if you look at the staff report on page 17, it specifically states water rights, and it says the applicant identifies water rights, and it gives a permits number. There's 2 of them there to be utilized to provide water for the pond. So I'm pretty sure he's got water rights.
No, I know that he has the water rights. His premise is that he has to build this pond to maintain his water rights.
I think all we're being asked to look at is major grading resulting up into 6 acres of land disturbance.
Correct, but the major grading and the whole, and I could be misreading this whole thing. This whole project, this whole thing is coming about because the applicant believes or is stating that he has to build this pond in order for him to have some use of his existing water rights.
There is a state law that says, and based upon my understanding, that you do have to use your water rights.
Okay.
And maybe this is just the way he wants to use it.
All right, all right.
That's the
That
way
could,
I see it.
all right.
Yeah.
Very generally, water rights can be lost by failure to put water to
Correct.
beneficial use. However, your considerations of the project have to be limited to your 5 factors under 81030.
Right. Mr. Christensen, did you have a question?
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob. I'm still getting over a pretty bad cough. Don Christensen, for the record. There are certain things we cannot consider today that we heard, last March was when we heard this thing? Anyway. So I have a question for the developer or for Mr. Hurry. What is the purpose of, and I have a good memory, I know what he said last time. What's the purpose of this pond? Why are we digging a pond out here in the middle of rural Washoe County and don't have electricity to maintain the infrastructure? Why? Why are we doing it?
Basically, what he's telling me is the whole water impoundment. He wants to hold water up there and have fish in it.
Okay, forgive me, I don't hear too well with this cost. Did you say fish?
Correct, fish,
So we're talking about recreational use.
correct.
That's consistent with what my understanding was. Just to offer my comment, Leo was kind of going around what I wanted to talk about, and that was the purpose. You know, I bought a $25,000 boat to take my kids fishing instead of digging a $25,000 pond. Now, that's just an aside. We're not here to consider the economics of this thing at all. But in the larger sense, I don't like this project, didn't like it before, and I would be disinclined to vote for passage of this as presented.
Okay. This is Rob Berger. Janelle, can I ask you a question? Is that possible? I know that you stated many times in here that you're good with this, but based upon some comments today, I just want to double check. Are you really confident that what they're doing is going to be safe at this point? I know that they still have to go further, but based upon your knowledge of what you have and what we're looking at today, do you feel that this is a safe project?
Janelle Thomas, for the record. The conditions that staff created, I believe, address any of the public health and safety concerns.
Okay.
And so satisfaction of those conditions would allow us to, again, make the recommendation that we did, which is to approve with the attachment of these conditions.
Okay, I trust your decisions. And the culverts going downstream, is that going to be considered at a later time?
I believe that those would be part of the breach analysis that is required for one of the conditions of approval. There also is an emergency action plan. The number of conditions that need to be satisfied is pretty robust, as Commissioner Gashan previously mentioned. And so I'm happy to step through the conditions if you would like, but I do believe that we feel confident in the memo that we provided to staff.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to remind board members, we are only here to look at the special use permit for major grading resulting in up to 6 acres of land disturbance. That's why we're here. Does anybody else have any other comments or questions?
I have a question, thank you. Kathy Julian for the record. I'd like to hear Mr. Lloyd's comments back on the acre feet. My understanding from my review of the one back in, I think, October of 2021, which was denied unanimously by the Board of Adjustment, was that was a 20 acre feet volume of water. Now, I'm not, and there was some unclarity about that volume because they were measuring it in 2 different ways. But as I understood, that was 20 acre feet of water. This is now about 5 acre feet of water. Can someone on staff comment on that? Are we talking, and I'm talking about the full volume of water. And I know I appreciate the chairman saying we're only here to talk about grading, but in my view, the grading is inextricably linked to dam and a massive volume of water. So how much water volume are we talking about behind this dam that could have a detrimental effect on people? How many acre feet of water?
And I do apologize, I've been looking for that number. What I'm finding is the amount of disturbance from the original application. I haven't seen a water storage volume in the original
I
application.
think it was in the minutes of the previous meeting that I did review earlier today.
That's very possible. Yeah, let me take a look at the minutes and see if it was disclosed by the applicants at that meeting. I was looking in the application and
I think we had, this is Rob for the record, I think we had a concern because of the size of the dam back there, and it's my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, that the applicant's coming back before us and reducing the size of the dam and then using the fill dirt to fill in what he had done before to try to make this right. So I think that the applicant is in good faith trying to fix what had happened in the past, and while he's at it, he would like to have a 1 acre pond. It's, engineering says that it's safe. It's still got to go through other policies and procedure checks, and there's still other steps going down the road. For me, I don't understand. I think that, we're just here to approve or deny this major grading and to fix what he did. He just wants to fix the past illegal. I mean, we're not here to scrutinize everything. We're just here to look at the moving of some dirt. So, and engineering is comfortable with everything, so. Go ahead, Mr. Lay.
According to the minutes from 2021, the applicant represented that pond would be holding about 20 acre-feet of water.
Right. Yeah. So he's gone way down in size.
A follow-up question on that would be the acreage, the volume of water has gone down to 5 acre feet. If you look at those minutes, it makes a differentiation in how it's measured. So is that 5 acre feet comparable to the 20 acre feet? Because I think the reference was to something about there being measuring it from a certain elevation or level above. Perhaps staff can clarify on that, engineering staff. I don't know, or the consultant.
Janelle Thomas, for the record. Can you repeat your question?
If you look at the minutes, there was in the minutes, there was a confusion as to the volume of water. It was originally stated as being smaller, but then it was clarified by the consultant that it was actually a larger volume of water because of the difference in the way you measure it. And I just want to make sure that we don't have that same issue happening now in terms of how you measure the acre feet of water in this reservoir, as they referred to it in those minutes. Maybe I just look at the minutes and look at the documentation very carefully, so I'm picking up on these things.
Yeah, and I apologize. I was not present at the last hearing regarding this particular project site, but I will tell you that the volume of water that is contained within a facility is typically going to be measured in the same manner. It is going to be from the bottom of the structure to the top of the structure, and then the volume calculated from that, from those measurements. And so, I can,
Okay, and
I can let you know that the current calculation of approximately 5 acre feet is what is being proposed. Pardon me.
Okay, and I found in the minutes, it says, he provided clarification, it's 20 acre feet of water. Mr. Thomas with Lumos Associates stated that the 2.5 acre feet was how much water would be above the normal water surface to the top of the dam. So I'm assuming that the 5 acre feet we're talking about is not that measure of water from the normal water surface to the top of the dam, which was that was a figure that was given in the previous application. Okay, so I just want to clarify on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Or can I get a motion?
I have one, Leo Harishny for the record, one final question, because, and I'm sorry, Chairman, I understand this is just earth movement, but it's earth movement for a specific structural purpose. And so in that sense, I asked this question. So if we do approve this, if this does go off to Nevada, state of Nevada for any sort of review on operations and maintenance, what happens what happens to the earth moving once we approve earth moving to X point of the dam structure, but it's found that the need for the 1 acre pond means that he has to, what gets adjusted, either the size of the dam and the earth moving or the water, if once this thing is actually constructed, they're finding that they have, the pond or whatever, the retaining structure doesn't match into whatever this amount of earth we're moving today, or we're approving to move today. I don't know if
Janelle Thomas for the record. Typically on these applications, when the building permits are submitted, staff is reviewing them for substantial conformance with the special use permit that was issued. If there was a significant change in the volume of material that is proposed to be moved or acre feet of water to be stored, that would have to come back before you as an amendment to that application.
All right.
Good. Can you get a motion?
Are we going to have, for discussion, Kathy Julian for the record, I truly can't. There is so much that is left in those conditions, and I do appreciate staff for putting in all of these many conditions in here. But a couple issues I have with that is, one, in all of those conditions, the opportunity for public review oversight is minimal at all, if at all, so that I don't have true confidence that all of these conditions will ensure that this will not be a detrimental grading to this property or lead to something detrimental because of this grading that we're allowing here. And the second point is, if this is so safe, then, and if the county has such confidence in all of these conditions making this safe, then why are they taking themselves off the hook by removing their liability and, and leaving the residents and property owners downstream, which do not include Mr. Hurry, at risk? And the third thing is, I would feel much more comfortable if a lot of these studies, the seismic studies, the hydrological studies, had been done prior to us being asked to provide a special use permit for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion or comments or questions? Not hearing any, I would entertain a motion.
Peter Gashon for the record.
Oh, do we have an amended motion? I'm sorry.
Oh, good. Glad you remembered that.
Yeah. There's an amended motion.
If it's saved or not, but it would, Courtney Wakey, Senior Planner for the record, it would be the motion as presented, with the exception of adding the removal of conditions 2A, B, and X.
That's it?
That is it.
Okay, all right, sorry. Just for a point of clarification. Okay. All right, Peter, you're up.
I move Peter Gashon for the record. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions except 2A, B, and X, special use permit case number WSUP 24-0015 for applicant with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, except 2A, B, and X, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
This is Rob, I'll second it. So we've got a motion, and we've got a second to move major grading, or to permit for major grading, and to fix an error in the past. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
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 So that's 3 nays and 2 ayes, so motion fails. Can you please read the appeal procedure, Mr. Lloyd?
Most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-3610 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee.
All right, thank you. So that brings us to item 8C. It's listed as B, but we moved an item in there, so it's C. Special use permit case number WSUP 24-0014, Virginia Peak Telecom Tower. Mr. Lloyd, can you please announce that?
Yeah, for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit for a commercial lattice tower antenna at Virginia Peak, an existing telecommunications site. To vary height standards from 35 feet to 104 feet and to waive standards for parking and landscaping. The new facility will consist of a 100-foot tall lattice monopole tower with an antenna reaching to 104 feet. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Senior Planner Eric Young.
Eric, welcome back. Long time no see.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Eric Young, Senior Planner with the Planning Program. This is a special use permit 24-0014, which is a commercial antenna up at the Virginia Peak antenna site, which is being proposed by Nevada Energy. The project is, let's see, there we go. The project is quite a remote location if you're familiar with what we call the Paw-Ra Range. The parcel that it's located on is essentially the ridge, the north-south ridge of a substantial part of the Paw-Ra Range, which is located to the west of 447. There you can see where Wadsworth is. You're getting up right towards where you can see where Nixon is over there to the east. See Palomino Valley there to the west, quite a bit a ways to the west. Access to this site is actually through Palomino Valley. It's quite remote. The site is 421 acres, but the actual leased site is a 10,000 acre leased site on this large parcel. That parcel is right on the edge of the Warm Springs area plan and the East Truckee Canyon area plan. It's the last parcel going east in Warm Springs. The next parcels over and headed down the ridge to the east begin the East Truckee Canyon area plan. And it's zoned general commercial right now. The request is for special use permit for a commercial antenna on a 100-foot lattice tower at the Virginia Peak Telecom site to vary height standards from 35 feet to 104 feet and to waive standards for parking and landscaping. This is the 10,000 square foot leased site at the top of the hill. There are other antennas on site, and NV Energy has a fenced area there in the northwest of this site. This Virginia Peak telecom site is one of only 11 predetermined sites in the county where a lattice tower is allowed. Lattice towers aren't permitted anywhere else, but this is one of the sites where a lattice tower is permitted. Here's a bit of the site plan that will fit onto that 10,000 square foot leased area. As you can see, there is an existing lattice tower there, but it's only up to 30 feet. The lattice tower that they want to build will be directly adjacent to it inside the fence. That will be substantially taller, up to 100 feet, with a small 4-foot antenna reaching above that. Here's an example of the difference between the two, the existing lattice tower and the proposed new one, along with the fence site. These towers are required by code to be able to accommodate multiple antennas, and so there will be multiple antennas for this site, and it will be able to hold more in the future. So the evaluation of this is somewhat straightforward. It's a commercial antenna to support Nevada Energy solar and battery storage facility that they're building to the east in Churchill County. It's a very large facility. It's a critical component of NV Energy's overall energy portfolio for the state. And this commercial antenna is part of the overall communications infrastructure that supports NV Energy's overall statewide infrastructure, but it's in particular required to help support this new facility in Churchill County. As mentioned, the Virginia Peak site is one of only 11 predetermined sites that can have a lattice tower. This extra height going up above what's currently allowed in GR for this use, it sounds dramatic, and yet we are in an extremely remote site at one of the few sites in the county that is already determined appropriate for this type of a use. And that height is actually required to make it functional in order to reach up above the other peaks and be able to reach over to Churchill County and then in other directions as well. This facility is not crewed and it's not permanently staffed, and that has a significant impact on the need for parking. In many instances, the code says that if it's not staffed, parking and landscaping are not required. In this instance, it's appropriate because of the lack of staff and the really extremely remote location. There is parking there now for the periodic maintenance crews that come up, but we don't feel that additional landscaping or parking is required at this location. The new tower is necessary, and this is one of the findings that's required, because the existing tower does not have the structural capacity in both height and antenna capacity to achieve the required functionality. As stated by the applicant in the application, the new tower is required because the existing tower does not have the structural capacity for the required equipment. Additionally, the height of the existing tower is not adequate to provide the signal required to reach the telecom towers at Sierra Solar in Churchill County, which is a necessary component of operating the solar and energy storage plant. We sent this out to multiple reviewing agencies. A handful responded. We only got conditions from 2. Those conditions were that it will require a building permit, and then Palomino Valley GID submitted some conditions that are relative to maintaining the road or fixing any damage that is done to the road as part of the construction activities. That is an ongoing concern of the Palomino GID, which we respect. So we worked to develop some conditions with them that will require that any damage that may be done to the road as part of this activity will be fixed by NV Energy. Although the number of trucks in the construction traffic is actually expected to be fairly minimal, they'll take it all up there in one trip. Then it'll be more like pickup trucks taking crews up to build it until it's done. And then they'll bring the big truck back down. So it's not a lot of trips of big trucks. In the public notice, we notified 35 parcels. We got one comment, not from any of these 35 parcels, but from somebody in Spanish Springs who reviewed the agenda and had a question about the role of the FAA in towers and whether this had been reviewed. The way Washoe County Code works for towers like this, at time of building permit, they will be required to submit proof that they have their FAA clearance and their FAA permits, which in this case we already know will be exempt because they're not high enough. You have to be up to 200 feet before that becomes required. But they'll still, all towers are still required to go through that process, and they will be required to show us that they completed that when they submit for their building permits. So staff was able to make all of the 5 required findings that are for all the special use permits. This particular special use permit has additional findings required by the development code. For any telecom facility, we're worked through and we're able to make those comments, or we feel that those findings are able to be met as well. And specifically, this particular type of commercial antenna, this commercial antenna has other findings as well, so there are 2 sets of additional findings for you to consider. Staff feels like those can be met as well. Those have to do with necessary to meet the applicant's needs. We went through that issue. Compatible with existing proposed uses in the facility. We spoke about the extreme remote nature of this site. And then that the commercial antenna is provided with adequate safety equipment. These towers are required to have either no climb structures around them so that you can't actually climb it, or to have a security fence. This one has a security fence. That fence right now by staff inspection could stand some maintenance, and so we are including as one of the conditions of approval that fence be properly maintained. So that will bring us to a proposed motion for you to consider. And I'm available for any questions if you have them. I believe that the applicant is also available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Would the applicant like to make their presentation at this time?
I don't believe the applicant brought a presentation. Okay. I think they are, from our meetings, there are several from their team available in order to answer any range of questions that you may have.
Okay. At this time, let's open up public comment. Do we have any public comment on this?
In chambers, there is no public comment. And via Zoom, any hands raised? No
Okay.
public comment on Zoom either.
And we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for discussions or questions. Anybody have any questions or want to discuss anything?
Leo Harishny for the record. And I don't know if, Mr. Young, you can answer this, or if this is something I have to ask NV Energy. I'm curious, physically, the access road to the site is remote, but driving out there, I could be wrong, again, because you can't really get to it, but driving out there on 447, if the site is the one that I'm thinking of, that 30-foot tower is pretty darn visible. And in fact, there's a couple of 30-foot towers up there. So I am curious, and it's not your responsibility, but I'm curious as to why the need for such a taller tower when, yes, Nevada has lots of mountain ranges, when another subsequent lower tower in between here and the transmission plant might not have been a possible action. That's one. The two is the 100-foot tower length. Will it be neutral aluminum, or will it also, is that 200-foot FAA standards, is that when they start becoming colored towers with the red and white warning colors, if that's something you can answer?
Eric Young, Senior Planner, thank you for those questions. I want to warn anybody who may be more interested in this site, like you were, and who may attempt to go there. Do not attempt to get there from I-80. Do not attempt to get there up through Olinghouse, even though Google may tell you it's possible. It is not possible, and somebody will have to come get you. Please, if you're that interested and you need to know about it, only attempt to get there off of the Pyramid Highway heading east, and it's still quite a trek. So one of the reasons this site is chosen is because, as we mentioned, lattice tower construction is, the locations available for lattice tower construction are severely limited because they are considered the least aesthetic of all the potential towers that are possible. And it's actually listed in our development code as the least desirable. And that's why we limit them to predetermined spots where we say, okay, this is where you're going to see antennas. This one spot is where you're going to see them. They're not going to be all over, not going to be up and down the ridge. We're going to maintain them right here. And then way over here, here's another spot, and that's the only spot you'll see them. So that's the purpose of that one spot. Whether it was possible for them to choose another spot further out and do two spots with the lower tower, that's an engineering technical piece that they would have to answer for you about that ability to do that. And why they need specifically 100 feet is another thing that they would be able to answer for you. When it comes to the color of the tower, it will be required to be that neutral color and to fit in as much as a 100-foot tower can, right? My understanding of the FAA rules, which is limited, I don't want to speak for them, but it has to do with when you're required to light it, not so much the color, but when you're required to put a light on it, and then what the standards for those lights would be.
Okay.
So that's my go at your questions. The applicant is here, and I'm sure would be happy to answer further.
Thank you. And I understand that, again, we're unfortunately responding to my assumptions because the site's so remote that I may be looking at a certain tower that isn't this particular tower.
There is another leased site on that 400-acre parcel. There's another at the Virginia Peak. There's another fenced-off lease site just to the south of it, that if you go up a little bit further on the aerial photo, you can see it. It's adjacent to it. It's just a little bit further away. So there's a couple leased areas up there for the Virginia Peak telecom site where this would be permitted.
So I guess, and this is, I don't know, I don't mean to say this is your responsibility, but it would be helpful in sites, locations such as this. I appreciate that someone did go up there and did get a picture at the site, at the location, and did show honestly that, yes, the site does need some maintenance around the fence, but it also would be, I think it would be helpful to at least get one or two other typical views of the location. So say from 447, or say from, Whiskey Springs, say from Whiskey Springs Road, if that was possible to answer questions like I have, so that we're not necessarily assuming like I am that what I'm seeing is what is the reference point for this tower. Thank you.
Rob,
Go ahead, sir.
I do have one comment or suggestion, if you will. For the record, Don Christensen. And Leo brought this out by both of these last two matters that we heard today, that if we could include GPS coordinates in our, when we have a zero address on a rural road, or in this particular case, incredibly out in the boonies. I've been out that way, hunting and stuff, and wow, it's easy to get, as you say, have to get pulled out. But yeah, it'd be fun to, from this board's point of view, any of us who have that level of interest to go out and take a look at it. Yeah, throw the GPS numbers on it. That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
I agree.
I'll speak from personal experience. I've been up there several times, and you need a good four-wheel drive to get up there. So it is fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
I wouldn't recommend it to the general public. Yeah. Have anything, Peter?
Just one quick curiosity, Peter Gishon for the record. How did you close the loop on the GID's ability to impose fines? Like the email correspondence just kind of died, but I didn't see fines as part of the conditions of approval.
Fines are not, Eric Young, planning program. State statute is really pretty clear on the authority of GIDs and what they're able to do and not able to do. They have a very minimal authority to impose fines, and this is not one of the circumstances under which they have the ability to impose fines. And so that just had to come out, just by necessity. But we hoped very much that we were able to maintain the attention to the GID's concern and what their overall expectations at the end of the day would be, that any damage is fixed. The email correspondence did just stop, and I yet to hear from them today.
Okay. Ms. Julian, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Leo Harishny for the record. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approves with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 24-0014 for V Energy, having made all required findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code, subject to the conditions contained in Exhibit A to the staff report.
Okay.
Okay.
That looks to me like that is the motion.
Kathy Julian for the record, I second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Thank you. GPS would be nice, but you guys don't want, trust me, there's some.
It's not that I wanted to go up there, it's the fact that even from the freeway, if the towers that I saw, I could see, and those were only 30-foot towers, then, are they going to have a big red, white,
Oh, I got you, yeah. Oh, okay, I misunderstood it. Okay.
And the fact that, and that was my point, the fact that somebody did go up there and did have the pictures from the antenna down, and it's possible that I saw it here, like where we were driving.
Yeah.
But if something is that remote and there is a visibility in one, I think it should, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask. Viewer impact as well as from the actual surroundings. That's all.
Right.
That's all. And I'm not, I don't like putting comments like I said, why can't they do shorter towers and.
Oh, right,
I don't like putting in.
That would be expensive, because you gotta move all the power.
But only in the sense that I was just going from my perspective of, shit, if I can already see this 30-foot lattice tower, which I understand your requirement of the need multiple dishes on a lattice tower versus a regular single one. Right. But if I actually
All right.
Recording in progress.
We're going to bring the meeting back to order. It's 3:02. Next item on the agenda is special use permit case number WSUP 240016, Lead with Horses. Mr. Lloyd, would you please announce that?
Yeah, for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit for a new commercial stable use type for the purpose of establishing an equine-assisted therapy and education facility. The proposed use will include boarding up to 30 horses and site improvements to support the facility. The applicant is also requesting to modify applicable parking and landscaping requirements. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Planner Julie Olander.
Welcome back, Julie. The floor is yours.
So as Mr. Lloyd said, this is a special use permit for boarding of horses up to 30 horses, and the applicant is also requesting the modified planning, parking, and landscaping requirements. A little background on this program. Lead with Horses was co-founded in 2015 and is currently located at 1944 Annie Lane and has an existing special use permit for that location. LEAD has grown over the past decade and is now planning to merge with the nonprofit Center for Adaptive Riding, with LEAD as the surviving entity. The applicant states that LEAD and, I'm not sure if they say CAR, okay, share a core belief that the lives can be bettered through meaningful interaction with horses. And the request will allow for a single nonprofit equine assistive facility providing EAS facility for the individuals and families. The facility will focus on physical, emotional, and behavioral support services to the community by addressing disability services, mental health, and youth development, and recognizing that these areas of need often intersect. The hours of operation will be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week, with an on-site caretaker to provide 24-hour facility oversight. And there will be no stadium lighting or loudspeakers. The parcel, just to get oriented a little bit, the parcel is down in Washoe Valley, and the master plan for the parcel to the north, south, and west are rural residential. The regulatory zoning for the parcel to the north and south is low-density rural, and the parcel to the east is parks and recreation. And then for the parcel to the east, it's master plan rural and has a regulatory zoning of public, semi-public facility, and that's where the new Washoe City Park is located. So you have the master plan designation parcels on the left, and then the regulatory zoning designation on the right. The 9-acre parcel currently has a 3,437 square foot residence and a 1,428 square foot caretaker house. 3,024 square foot barn with 18 stalls and a large outdoor arena and grazing pastures. The proposal is to retrofit the residence into an office and operation area for the facility with an ADA bathroom, and to build an 8,000 square foot covered arena between the residence and the barn, a 10,000 square foot indoor arena adjacent to the barn, an 8,000 square foot outdoor arena adjacent to the indoor arena, and a 3,024 square foot barn. They're also proposing to add 16 paved parking spaces, including one ADA by the residents, and another 10 parking spaces and one ADA next to the 10,000 square foot indoor arena. And here's sort of an area, an oversight. This is sort of the eastern portion of the site. I've highlighted in yellow the new additions. So you can see the house is sort of that U-shape. Drive in off of Lake Shore, and they have a round a circular drive, and you have the barn, one of the proposed arenas highlighted in yellow on the left side, and then the parking is highlighted in yellow in the different locations it's at. And then this is where primarily a lot of the new structures are going to be located. You have the existing barn that's sort of in that brick-colored red. That's where the 18 barn is currently. And then they're proposing an indoor arena there with a hay storage. And then they're proposing to the top of the screen a new barn and another proposed arena. And then also there's parking down at the bottom of the screen. This is sort of some of the shots. I took some photos out there entering into the site on the bottom left, right-hand side, and then the house, you can see the circular drive. And then this is the existing barn and pastures that are around the barn. And here's some more of the pastures. So just to sort of highlight what these spaces are going to be that they're proposing is the indoor arena is 100 by 100 square foot, and it's going to be 16 feet in height. With the hay storage barn is going to be connected to that indoor arena, and that's 40 by 40. Then there's a new barn that's 36 by 84, a covered arena you have two covered arenas that are both 100 by 80. At this time, the applicant is actively fundraising and doesn't have specific elevations or floor plans for the buildings. When funds became available, they are going to be submitting building permits to the building department. They are hoping to do that in the next 2 years. However, the conditions of approval have given them 4 years to complete the proposed buildings. And here's some elevations that they did submit, sort of showing the indoor arena, and then the indoor arena with the hay barn in the bottom right corner. And then here's the a picture of what the outdoor arena will be, just covered, and then the other barn with stalls in it. The site is accessed from off, you saw that the driveway off Lakeshore Drive, and they are going to have a designated area for drop-offs and pickup for the clients with an agreement policy for the clients to sign so that they understand the procedures. And then the applicant has indicated that there'll be a total visitors, probably between 3 to 12 visitors, and then lessons will vary in length 1 to 6 hours. The maximum employees on site should be about 12 to 15. And then just due to the minimum amount of traffic that will be generated by this request, no traffic study is required. As you saw, there's going to be additional parking. They're proposing 26 parking places by the main residence and then by the barn. And Washoe County Code requires 0.25 parking places for every horse. So they're having 30 horses, and that requires 7.5 parking places, and then 2 additional parking places for the peak employment shift. And then also they asked for the 1 parking place for the ADA. So this site's going to be overparked. They'll have plenty of parking. Concerning water and sewer, the applicant has indicated that they are in the process of purchasing commercial water rights. There is an on-site disposal system currently in front of the residence. It has a capacity of 1,000 gallons and a leach field of 880 square feet. The existing disposal system is undersized for the proposed use based on the assumed parameters according to the applicant and according to the applicant's consultant. But further investigation is needed to confirm that septic system doesn't meet the commercial requirements. And then the applicant will work with Northern Nevada Public Health and state agencies to ensure that the commercial septic meets all requirements. They are planning to have a manure management plan, and they're working with Northern Nevada to develop that plan. And they are going to be cleaning stalls and regularly the other areas where the horses are going to be located, a minimum of 2 times a day. And they are going to store manure according to Northern Nevada Public Health requirements. So they are asking for some modifications. They are asking for modifications according to their parking requirements, that all paved areas are parked. They have a paved driveway, and then the area around the house you saw was paved. They're also going to pave the parking places, but the drive between the house and back to the barn, those areas are not going to be paved. And that's just because there's horses on the property, and people riding horses, there can be accidents. So staff supports the request for this partial waiver of not paving all the parking areas. And additionally, they have some landscaping requirements that they are proposing to waive. They have a coverage requirement, which is 20% for commercial uses. And they are indicating that, and the location, they have quite a bit of land, they have some landscaping on the property. Also, there's pastures. It's a pasture area out there in Washoe Valley. We don't have a lot of trees because it's windy out there. So they're proposing just to asking for, to waive all the landscaping requirement. And staff is willing to support that just because of the location, and it's a rural area, and the trees that are out there and the pastures that are out there give an impression that the area's got landscaping in its own way. It has rural landscaping. And then also there's a requirement in 41240B that requires that the yards adjoining the street are landscaped or with trees. And again, the same kind of scenarios going on out there. The location, the trees, but that requirement typically is for commercial uses that are adjacent to residential, and you're trying to buffer from the residential neighbors. However, this is a commercial stables and has a different feel about it. Again, staff is willing to support that modification. And then we have some more that are sort of the same, somewhat the same, landscaping to buffer adjoining residential uses with trees every 50 feet. And like the street, the trees are not going to, they don't serve a great purpose out there because of the pastures and just the type of business that it is. A commercial stables has a different feel about it than maybe a grocery store or any kind of other kind of commercial use you might see. And then we have 41240D, which is screening adjoining residential uses. Again, the trees, this is with a fence though instead of trees. And again, because of the rural landscaping out there, and also that none of the buildings are right next to the neighbors, and the neighbors are a bit of a distance, so staff is supporting of that modification. Then this one is for buffering adjoining residential uses with fencing. And again, landscape buffer, excuse me. Again, staff is willing to support a waiver of this. And then the final one is the solid fence between the parking areas and adjoining residences. The parking areas are adjacent to existing buildings that will not be directly adjacent to the adjoining properties and won't be that visible either. So they had a neighborhood meeting on September 25th at Hampton Inns and Suites in Carson City. They had various questions about traffic, noise, lighting, water rights, commercial development, impacts to property values. The applicant provided some comments in the application addressing those concerns. The first concerns about the traffic and that they are providing an agreement with all the drop-off of clients. They're going to have a policy that will help address any kind of traffic concerns coming into the property. Noise and lighting, as I said, there will be no stadium lighting, and there's not going to be any loudspeakers. Commercial water rights, that's regulated by the state, so the people that were concerned about that, the state confirms that the water is available before they grant those water rights. The special use permit also is a process to help address some of the neighbors' concerns, and that's what we're here today about. And then finally, the commercial use, they were concerned about having commercial use in the area, and the applicant said this stimulates the local economy by creating jobs and attracting consumers. And this increased economy activity can lead to a higher demand for residential and commercial properties, driving up property values. This item was noticed 1,000 feet from the site, and there was 45 notices that were sent out. I did not receive any phone calls in favor or in opposition. However, we have received numerous emails, and I believe they've all been forwarded to you. Various departments and agencies have reviewed this application, and the ones with conditions are included in the conditions of approval, Exhibit A. Staff is able to make I'm able to make all the findings, and here's a possible motion. Also, the applicant is here and available for any questions, as I am also.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Yes, please, and good afternoon. I'll wait for the presentation to get loaded. For the record, my name is Anne Marie Lane. I am the applicant's representative with Juniper and Sage Consulting. Today, I'll introduce you to the applicant, provide project background, outline their request, and address key insights and concerns. Lead with Horses is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization committed to improving lives through quality equine-assisted therapy and education. LEAD's mission is to improve the social, emotional, and behavioral development of children and youth through quality therapeutic and educational programs. Born out of a need for alternative services for youth struggling in traditional settings, LEAD assists families, foster children, children of veterans, youth at risk, and other underserved populations who may be struggling socially or emotionally. The LEAD team includes qualified youth development and mental health professionals, as well as equine specialists. All team members are certified by the Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association, having passed through standardized hands-on training, assessment, and membership. LEAD is the only facility offering EAGLA certified programs in Washoe County. It is my honor to introduce you to the individuals who have played a vital role in championing this effort. For the benefit of the board, I'd like to ask each of you to stand briefly when introduced. With me today, I have Ms. Jean Spada-Allgood, Lead with Horses Executive Director. Jean has been in the field of education for over 20 years and has worked with Northern Nevada Youth since 2008. She holds a Master's of Arts in Youth Development and is a certified equine specialist. In 2015, Jean co-founded Lead with Horses to help children and youth in our community. Also with me here today is Lead with Horses Board President, Ms. Deborah Wurzel. Deborah is a committed leader to the organization, contributing hours of volunteer service to the program. She is a strong advocate for the organization, driven by her passion to make our community a better place for everyone. Additional attendees include project engineer from Dal, Mr. Salas Callahan, Center for Adaptive Writing Executive Director, Ms. Lisa Minante, and Center for Adaptive Writing Board President, Ms. Christine Perry. Thank you all for standing and for being here today. We are lucky to have such an incredible team supporting this effort. Currently, LEAD is operating with an existing special use permit at 19440 Annie Lane, just west of the Big Tech Trailer World outlet, located on Alternative Route 395 in Washoe County. As LEAD has grown over the past decade, they have entered into several key partnerships, including with the nonprofit Center for Adaptive Writing, to provide powerful and effective EAS services for individuals and families in our community. Currently, the Center Adaptive Riding is operating at 6505 Bondi Lane, just south of the village at Ranchera. CAR's primary focus is therapeutic horseback riding, providing services to children and adults with a variety of physical, emotional, and developmental disabilities. Lead with Horses and CARs serve the most vulnerable members of our community through the power of horses. They provide safe spaces to create an inclusive, supportive, and empowering environment where people with diverse abilities can experience the benefits of EAS facilities. They share a core belief that lives can be bettered through the meaningful interactions with horses. And, got a little behind. With the recent acquisition of the subject site, they envision a single EAS facility that will provide physical, emotional, and behavioral support to our community. The two organizations plan to merge into a single nonprofit with LEAD as the surviving entity. As such, the applicants are requesting the approval of a special use permit to establish commercial stables as a permitted use on the subject site, which is located at 2575 Lakeshore Drive, with a maximum capacity of up to 30 horses. The 9.8 acre site is located west of Washoe Lake on Lakeshore Drive and is located within the South Valley's planning area. The subject site is located directly across from the new Washoe City Park. Washoe County regulates land use through zoning districts to ensure orderly and compatible community growth. The applicant understands and respects these regulations and is committed to complying with county and other governing jurisdictional requirements. The subject site is located within the low-density rural regulatory zoning district. It is surrounded by LDR zoning district to the north and south, public, semi-public facility zoning to the west, and parks and recreation zoning to the east. The low-density rural regulatory zone is intended to preserve areas where agriculture, grazing, and/or open space is predominant. Examples of uses that would require a special use permit in the LDR zoning district includes religious assembly, commercial stables, commercial kennels, and wholesale nursery cells. Washoe County uses the special use permit process to evaluate a specific use for a site. Throughout the application process, the applicant has been working collaboratively with Washoe County to meet all requirements, and they are committed to continuing to work collaboratively with all reviewing agencies throughout the duration of the project to ensure successful completion. Prior to submitting the applicant attended a pre-application meeting with Washoe County Planning Department on September 13, 2024, and in compliance with Washoe County pre-submittal requirements, they sent out neighborhood meeting notifications and hosted a neighborhood meeting. A total of 46 neighborhood meeting notifications were sent to adjacent property owners. The neighborhood meeting was held on Wednesday, September 25th, 2024 at Hampton Inn and Suites, located in Carson City, Nevada. Not including the applicants, there was a total of 7 public participants at the neighborhood meeting. This slide highlights the various existing structures and features that make up the property. Each element plays a vital role in the functionality and character of the site, providing insight into how the applicant plans to utilize these spaces moving forward. Current site conditions include a paved driveway access with turnaround pickup drop-off area, enhancing convenience for visitors and operations. The site features several existing buildings, including the main residence. This building will be retrofitted to accommodate lead offices and operations. 2 large grazing pastures are situated along the front property line adjacent to Lakeshore Drive, enhancing the site's pastoral character. The applicant proposes to maintain these pastures as is. The caretaker's quarters will provide an on-site living accommodations to provide 24-hour facility oversight. And the existing barn includes a bathroom that will be updated to comply with IBC and ADA requirements. A portion of the outdoor arena will be converted to a covered arena. All proposed new facilities are strategically set back approximately 350 feet from Lakeshore Drive and are buffered by 2 front yard grazing pastures to ensure seamless integration with the surrounding landscape. There are a total of 27 proposed parking spaces located adjacent to the main residence and proposed new indoor arena. 17 new paved parking spaces will be located at the front of the residence, providing convenient access for visitors. This includes a van-accessible 80 parking space directly in front of the main residence and an additional parking space for the caretaker. 10 new paved parking spaces will be located adjacent to the proposed new indoor arena. This includes another ADA parking space for a total of 2 ADA parking spaces on the project site. The applicant is proposing 2 8,000 square feet covered arenas. And an indoor arena with attached hay storage and a proposed new barn. The proposed covered arenas will consist of a roof supported by structural beams or posts, offering protection from elements such as sun, rain, and snow. The covered arenas will not have enclosed walls, allowing for natural ventilation and open air environment. The adjacent property located north of the subject site has an existing land use of commercial agriculture operating as Shine In Times Ranch. The adjacent property located south of the subject site has an existing land use of residential single family. The closest proposed structure to the single-family residential structure located south of the subject site is the covered arena located between the existing barn and the main residence. This structure is located approximately 230 feet away from the neighboring residential structure and is buffered by a substantial swath of existing trees, providing natural screening. All of these developments are designed to enhance the property while maintaining respectful distance from neighboring properties and the roadway. One of the concerns mentioned during public engagement was the concern of increased traffic in the area. The traffic generation for lead operations estimates a total of 63 daily trips with 23 peak AM trips and 26 peak PM trips. Trip generation estimates are below the county's threshold that would require a traffic study. The traffic pattern for the facility prohibits pickup and drop-off off Lakeshore Drive to avoid impeding through traffic in the area. The applicant did propose a condition that requires, I lost my train of thought, I was on a roll. That requires, thank you, all parents and guardians and participants of the facility to sign an agreement acknowledging the policy. Another concern addressed at the neighborhood meeting was noise. The applicant's representative explained that hours of operations are limited and the applicant will not be using any outdoor speakers. A few neighbors expressed concern about the facility's lighting having a negative impact in the area. It was explained that the applicant will not be installing any stadium-style lighting and that the standard permit conditions require a detailed lighting plan to be submitted to the county for approval prior to building permit issuance. A few neighbors expressed concern about the availability of water rights for the facility. The state of Nevada requires commercial equine uses to obtain commercial water right permits based on the number of horses. The applicant is currently working with a water rights specialist to obtain the required water rights and understands that these are required prior to business license approval. Another concern was that was brought up was over the potential negative impact to adjacent property values. The applicant understands that property values are a significant concern to property owners. Property values are influenced by a variety of indicators ranging from location-specific factors to broader economic conditions. However, increasing economic activity often leads to a higher demand for residential and commercial properties, driving up property values. As such, it is not anticipated that this request will have any negative impact to surrounding property values. The applicant has received 16 letters of support and 0 letters of opposition. As evidenced throughout this presentation and submitted application materials, the SUP request is consistent with governing approval provisions and aligns with the Envision Washoe 2040 Master Plan and the South Valley's vision statement. The applicant accepts the conditions of approval as outlined in the staff report. On behalf of the applicant, as well as their partners, patrons, and supporters, we respectfully request Washoe County Board of Adjustments to approve this request. I want to take a brief moment to thank Washoe County Planning staff, Ms. Julie Olander, for her professionalism and excellent communication throughout this process. Her dedication and thorough review is greatly appreciated. I'd also like to thank the Board of Adjustments for your time and consideration, and of course, Lead with Horses for entrusting Juniper and Sage to guide them through this process. I or project engineer Silas Callahan are happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this time, let's open up public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, I have Don Marrier, followed by Sarah Schwepp.
Just please state your name for the record. You got 3
Don
minutes.
Marrier. I'm here in support, and I've been a wonderful, experienced. I'm a volunteer. I met Jean 7 years ago. She introduced me to the group. She gave me the program. She talked about the results they seek, introduced me to the horses. She could have stopped right there. She had me at hello. Truth of the matter is, over the next 7 years, I helped in many of the equine therapy sessions. I saw with my own eyes. I'm a witness. Wonderful results for these kids, many age groups. Imagine a 5-year-old, little 5-year-old, kind of maybe retired in the world, maybe withdrawn. 6 weeks later, newfound self-confidence, leading a 1,200-pound horse around the ring. It's an amazing thing when a horse and a child connect with trust and respect. So I'm just here to tell you, everything they said, ditto, but I've seen it. In addition to that, this is a horse-centric group. They provide a wonderful example to other horsemen, how to care for horses. They've taught me how to care for horses. I'm telling you, I tell all my friends, when I shovel, I'm in Zen. Now, a good neighbor. We got to talk about them being a neighbor. Everything I've seen is that whether there's a fire or a flood, and we get plenty of both, they're there to help. They're a stabilizing factor in the community. These are professional, serious people, but they're also humans, and they care about their human friends in addition to their horse friends. So we have caring for kids. We have caring for horses. I mean, Nevada's favorite, horses. And we've got a good community member. Putting all those together, I want to bring up some ranch advice. You never call for a vote in a barn, because all you get is nays. This ain't no barn. I'd like to hear some yays in favor of this approval. Thank you.
Sarah Schwepp, followed by Jean Spada, all good.
Hello, my name is Sarah Schweppe. Good afternoon, board. I have volunteered with Lead with Horses for over 7 years. I have served on the board of directors, and every weekend, rain, snow, blazing heat, I do barn chores. Starting around today, I get so excited to see my 4-legged friends at the barn. My backstory is I'm twice retired. I retired from military service in 2015, and I retired from Washoe County School District as an elementary ed school teacher. I'm going to start with a focus on PTSD and veterans. PTSD is an invisible wound a wound that you feel that nobody will be able to understand? Well, Lead with Horses does. With the new property, they will be able to provide, sorry, Jean, sorry. Army Strong, I'll pull it together. Well, Lead with Horses does. With the new property, they will be able to expand their programs to include veterans. They will be able to provide an approach to veterans to address their trauma in a hands-on, holistic manner. While speaking about Lead recently at a military function, an active duty member said to me, "It was the weirdest thing, Sarah. I spent years and years in therapy in a brick and mortar building, but on a whim, I signed up for a program in Houston, Texas, and I found that being with a horse was what I needed. The horse was named Gizmo, and he was the key to me finding purpose again, a reason to look forward towards the future." Next, I'm going to speak about children and teens. Children and teens that have gone through Lead with Horses have an increased trust in themselves. They develop skills for healthy relationships. Horses live in the present moment, and that helps children and teens be mindful. Lead with Horses provides a safe space that promotes vulnerability. Your horse or donk, they trust you. This can encourage a person to open up about traumatic experiences, emotions, or stressors. During COVID, while we were teaching 100% remotely, Lead with Horses did virtual field trips. To this day, if I run into a student, they will say, "How are the horses and donks doing?"
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Thank you very much for listening to me, Board.
Thank you.
Jean Spada Allgood, followed by Ashley Belt.
Jean Spada Allgood, Executive Director of Lead with Horses. And I am here today as the Executive Director and as the co-founder of Lead with Horses to ask that you approve our request for a special use permit. I think our existing operations and our past 10 years operating under a current special use permit has really demonstrated that we're a good neighbor and we practice responsible management. Creating a collaborative equine-assisted services facility provides a valuable resource to our community, and it honors Washoe County's Western heritage, which is deeply rooted in horses and in the outdoors. The services offered at this facility will improve and even save lives. You see, in addition to being an administrator, I am also a facilitator of equine-assisted counseling and education. It is in this role that I have witnessed profound change in the children, youth, and families that we serve. I have seen families build communication, children learn to cooperate, and teens gain self-confidence and skills to overcome deep depression and anxiety. We are often the last chance, something a family tries after everything else has failed. We can only serve so many in our current location. We have a wait list. Center for Adaptive Riding has a wait list. There are people hurting and in need, and this new space will allow us to meet that need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley Belt, followed by, followed by Irina Salon.
My name is Ashley Belt, and thank you and good afternoon.
Can you please move the microphone closer?
Yes.
There you go. Thank you.
I am here in support of Lead with Horses. My journey began with Lead just over 3 years ago, and it has been an incredible journey. My background is extensively in horses. I hold a Bachelor's of Science in Animal Science with a specialization in equine from UC Davis. So I am here not only as an individual, but also as an employee. Horses have always played a key role in my life, growing up with them and learning so many of my own life skills. I was on track to go to vet school when life had other plans and moved me to Reno. It was shortly after this that I found Lead with Horses. I was working as a full-time barn and breeding manager, but wasn't fulfilled with my job that I was doing. I applied at Lead in search of something more. I don't think that I completed the first week of work before realizing that this was my dream job, that this is what I was meant to do. I started as a part-time equine specialist working with the 3 equine-assisted learning after-school groups. My position has since grown to a full-time as an equine specialist, as well as the barn manager, facilities manager, and volunteer coordinator. Our programs have expanded exponentially into 4 after-school groups, 2 days a week with a group therapy for high-risk youth, and 3 days a week with individual and family therapy, along with field trips and tours to educate those about equine-assisted services as well as mental health. Our staff has grown. When I was hired, there was 3 of us. There is now 10. Not to mention the numerous amazing volunteers that we have. On a weekly basis, I typically have about 20. It has been my pleasure to be part of this organization's growth, and it is my wish that we continue to do so. With the acquisition of this new property in Washoe Valley, we envision an equine-assisted campus where clients would be able to receive any type of equine-assisted service. This would be a vital game changer for the community, as it would provide several resources in one central location. This property brings together nature, culture, equids, and mental health. Therefore, I implore the board to approve Lead with Horses special use permit so that our team can continue to change the lives of those in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Irina Salon, followed by Tina Shenvim Springmeyer.
Hi, I'm Irina Salon, and I live just to the north of the proposed property. We have a 10-acre parcel, and we've lived there for 40 years, and we would like to ask for an extension to the approval or denial of the special use permit. I agree, it is a good foundation, and I remember, I know people over there off of Johnson Lane, and it is helpful. However, the original meeting that we had, the neighborhood meeting, they had technical issues, nothing was accomplished there. We didn't know anything, we walked away doing nothing. Then we received this report from Washoe County. There are discrepancies. Number one, there is a CCR on the 12, what do you call it? It's the Lakeshore properties. We have a CCR. I send you guys a copy of it today. Also, another thing too, it mentions here that there is a special commercial license to, on the property to the north, which is ours. It's Shrine and Times Ranch. It's not a commercial license. It is just a general business permit. So there is nothing commercial about it. When we purchased the property, the CCR quoted that there was not going to be any building below the 5 acres towards script wildlife management because it is a fire hazard. And also, now we're building, at the first meeting in Carson City, we were told there were going to be 2 buildings, 2 arenas built. Now, at this report, looking at this report, there are 3 arenas. It's covering mostly the 10 acres. What about Annie Lane right now? That property is in 10 acres. There are 10 acres. This property, this current property is smaller than what they have. So I would like to know, we would like to get together with our neighbors, because I like to get a list of all the notices, who they were sent to. Most of our neighbors haven't heard about it. So I would like to extend it so we can get a little bit more details on it. And as far as the water rights, the commercial well, we had a collapsed well, a neighbor had a collapsed well, we had droughts, we had flooding. We need to consider that we're putting some commercial entity in this residential and agricultural neighborhood. And it's not going to improve our property. So that's all I have to say right now. So I request that you might postpone this
Thank you.
decision.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tina
Thank
Shenvin Springmeyer.
Good afternoon. My name is Tina Shenham Springmeyer. I also need to follow my neighbor here that while this is a worthy program, and that's not in question, it's that it's a commercial program that's been put into a residential area. My husband and I bought our home 39 years ago, and you can imagine there was limited growth out there. And at that point, we didn't even have the 5-acre parcels that we're looking at down that Lakeshore Boulevard. But more importantly, we loved the pristine nature of Washoe Valley, the view of Slide Mountain, Mount Rose, our neighbors who were raising horses. We raised our family out there. All of those things are really critical and important. Some important things were brought up today that I wasn't aware of. I wasn't aware of an 8,000 square foot barn being put there. And while I do appreciate there's not going to be parking lights or there's not going to be stadium audio out there speakers, there will be lights on those larger buildings now, and that will affect our night sky, and that will affect where we live and why we live there. Also, my home is located on Coyote Drive, which is really just a few houses down from Lakeshore. So I imagine people will be coming down that road too to access this facility. Again, the facility itself, the question about what they're doing to serve children and families and the young adults that are really struggling, that's not in question, but it is in question about putting a commercial property into a residential area, a rural residential area that we all bought out there, and we love that area, and that's why we purchased our home out there. So I hope that you'll consider those kinds of things, and I do also agree that not all neighbors knew about these meetings, and I'm just grateful that I could be here today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
If there is no further public comment in chambers and no hands raised on Zoom, we can close public comment.
Okay, with that, we will close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions or comments or discussion.
Kathy Julian with a question for staff. Could you advise us on the notice process, when the notices went out and how they were selected? And do we have a sense that everybody got their notice?
Julie Olander for the record. So I noticed the requirement is at least 500 feet and 30 properties. I had to go out 1,000 feet, and I got, I think, 47.
We're confirming.
And when did the notice go out? By mail?
It was 46 notices sent on November 22nd.
So thank you.
So, all right. So that was, all right, thank you.
Are there any more questions for staff?
I don't know.
Peter Deshawn for the record.
Okay. Go ahead, Peter.
I think I'd first like to say I'm pleased to see a commercial stable finally approach us for an application for an SUP prior to being in existence, so we don't have to work backwards. Tell me about the time, a 4-year time frame. How does that operate? Can they install one building and then have multiple more years as long as the first building permit is issued within the 4-year time period?
Julie Olan for the record. No, they would have to get any barn would have to be completed in the next 4 years. And they can come in for an extension of time. You've heard those applications before. They've come before this board. And so they can extend that time, but that's up to those board approval.
And then I read that we need to upgrade from residential to commercial well and septic.
That is correct.
Has that been?
So that's a process. That's another reason I gave them 4 years. You're just about to hear the next item you're going to hear is they've had a challenge getting the septic in the last 2 years. And so I wanted to make sure that they didn't have, this is a nonprofit trying to be, respect their situation they're in. So I'm giving them 4 years because it can take quite a bit of time to get that approval from NDEP for the commercial septic. And then the water rights is also a challenge too. So they're going to have to bring the whole site up to commercial standards, including the house, if they're going to use that as no longer as a residence, but as an office space.
And may I ask the engineering team, have you done preliminary assessment? Is it all feasible?
Silas Callahan for the record. Yes, everything's feasible. It will take a little bit of effort. It does appear that the existing residential is a little bit smaller than what you would need for commercial, but it's an easy fix. It's an extension of the existing bleach field. There's more than enough room through the entire property. Similar with water. Water rights, of course, has to come first, and making sure that's adequate for the facility. But there's no reason to doubt that a well could go in there and have enough water to convey for the use proposed.
Do you have any historical knowledge or about this specific area, about some of the public comment about wells running dry and things of that sort?
And that happens throughout Nevada. Let's also face it, we live in an area that is highly fluctuating, seasonal. It comes and goes. I've seen this, and I know firsthand. My family grew up off of Mount Rose Highway, Mountain Ranch Road. During that period, we did see wells go dry. My own family did. It's a matter of having it deep enough and making sure that we're within what was provided within those water rights. That's the reason we have water rights, to ensure that there is no detrimental effects.
Okay. I suppose one more question based on public comment. Was there any discrepancy between what was shown at the neighborhood meeting versus what we're seeing today? Why do some people think there are more buildings than was initially proposed?
Not to my knowledge. There was one building that grew in size, and we did relocate the barn because it was originally shown within that 50-foot setback. We moved it to make sure that we were outside of the setback. Those were the only changes throughout this entire process, though.
Sorry, can you say that one more time? I just had to find my map.
Oh, no problem. The barn did grow in size. One of them did, by about 20 feet length or so. And then the barn was originally shown within the 50-foot setback on one of the sides, and we relocated it so it was outside the 50-foot setback.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a question for you. This is Rob for the record. I did see in one of the public comments that there is a note about the barn, so I would assume that it was brought up during the neighborhood meeting. Anyways, yeah. Is there any CC&Rs that should be considered in this? Somebody brought up CC&Rs. I mean, I know that that's out of our preview. I understand that, but for approval, I'm just kind of curious.
And I have no current knowledge of it, so that would be something we need to investigate.
I have a copy of it. I sent it to you today.
We have to make the decision tonight, ma'am, or today. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any?
Excuse me again. For the record, Don Christensen. It's been a while since I've been out that neighborhood. I used to commute from Sparks to Carson City every day. It seems to me, and of course there's been a lot of growth out there, and it seems to me that every time I'd go back in that direction this time of year, it seemed that there was always some flooding going on. And is this within the footprint of what that old Price Lake 40 years ago, where it overflowed and caused a lot of trouble? Are we in a floodplain situation here? I guess this would be for the engineer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Janelle Thomas, Senior Licensed Engineer for the record. This particular property is not located within the FEMA designated floodplain.
Thank you. That answers that question.
Do we have any other?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Leo Harishny for the record. I guess for the applicant or for Julie, it lists 2 ADA approved restrooms, but if you're having, upwards of 20 people there, I'm just curious, is that going to be enough capacity for your public that you serve?
Jean Spada, all good for the record. There are additional restrooms on site. Those will be the only ADA restrooms.
All right.
So there are 2 additional restrooms in the building, and there is also in the caretaker's quarters, there's the residential restroom as well.
And then, okay, another. Okay, and I guess this was for staff, and possibly for the engineer. That was my concern, was the idea of how far off they are from the commercial sewage carry capacity, and how much do they need to expect to expand in order to be within the guidelines?
At this point, as Julie Olander for the record, at this point, they're still investigating that. That has not, this is just the special use permit to allow them to move forward with that kind of investigation.
Right.
So at this point, that's a little premature.
All right.
But to get a license, they're going to have a functioning septic field, septic system, and water. So they're going to have both to be able to get their business license.
And so then, Leo Harishny again for the record, it seems to me that whether it was the realtor, I don't feel this is something on the applicant's part in overseeing, but if there are CCNRs, it seems to me that they should have and would have come up sooner in the process than, the day of being heard here. And I don't, and I want to say that, and I will publicly state that I am strong opposition to CCNRs and so on and so forth. But at the same time, if they exist and they have a legal standing, then it's a surprise to me that we're coming along this far in the process. And if they exist, that we're just now learning about them today.
As far as Julie Olen for the record, as far as I know, I did get the CCNRs this morning sent to me. However, as far as I know, there's no functioning HOA, and I will refer to our legal counsel to maybe respond to that.
All right.
Or maybe Trevor Lloyd can respond to that.
Now, just to respond to the CCNR issue, that is certainly an issue that is that the applicants may want to take up, but it's not the purview of this board. We do not have any enforcement authority over the CCNRs. That would be a civil matter between neighbors.
Right, and the applicant would like to speak on that matter.
Sure.
The CCNRs did not show up in the
Can you
title.
state your name?
Oh, Anne-Marie Lane for the record. Thank you for the reminder. The CCNRs did not show up in the title report, which is an indication to me that they may not be enforceable or fully vetted or
right. That's,
But we will definitely take a look at the document, but we do have a title report with no CCNRs.
that's fair. I didn't feel that there was any improper, any improper intent or anything like that, but if they exist, then, yeah.
Right, we will definitely look at the document.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Or
Yes,
oh,
Kathy
Ms.
Julian for the record. The results from the September 2024 neighborhood meeting on this project say that the changes made to the proposal were to require the traffic agreement, limited hours of operations, prohibit outdoor speakers, stadium lights, and limit the maximum number of horses. Now, and it says the applicant will address concerns recommended in conditions for approval for Washoe County's consideration. So my question is, and it's not really, perhaps, it's more systemic, is how do we make sure, or can we make sure, that these agreements coming out of these neighborhood meetings are in fact represented in the project going forward? Or is it, I don't mean to be provocative because I'm very supportive, I'm supportive of this project, this initiative, but I am concerned that the public has some indication that these things will be done, but then will they be done? And where are the hooks? How do we know they're going to be done? And what if they're not done? And where is the record of this? And I would like that to be represented in the minutes of this meeting, what I'm saying now, because at least that will be an easy, accessible record of these things that were said to be, essentially promised to the community, to the other surrounding property owners. So can staff and maybe Trevor address that issue?
Yeah, I do believe the applicant would like to speak to this matter. I do believe that they have incorporated certain changes into their application. So Anne Marie, if it's okay with that.
Of course, yeah, I was just going to call her out, yeah.
Anne Marie for the record. So in the application submittal to Washoe County, the applicant did provide a document saying that these are drafted conditions that the applicant would be willing to agree to address specific concerns like the prohibition of stadium lights or outdoor speakers. So if those are items that the board would like to see conditioned on this project, we're absolutely agreeable to those. We want to address the community's concerns. We want to be good neighbors.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy Julian, for the record. Then my question is for our legal counsel. Why is it that these are not conditions in the agreement? And does the board have the ability to make these conditions of the agreement since they are agreeable to the applicant and they were promised to the community?
Yes, to the extent that the applicant is agreeable to the conditions, those would be appropriate conditions to be added to this permit. I know that one of them, the drop-off and pickup policy, is included in the conditions. But yes, the board does have that authority.
Okay, Kathy Julian, for the record, I'd be willing to support this provided that we put in these conditions as additional conditions so that the public and the property owners there see this in writing and it is in the conditions.
I think Julie wants to speak on
This
this
is
matter.
Julie Olander for the record. I just want to remind Member Julian that these items are all in the staff report. So these are the items that, they could, as has been stated before, that certain things will be in the conditions, but if they're in the staff report, that is also public record. So what items are you proposing to add to the conditions?
Okay, I would propose to add the limitation on the stadium lights and the speakers.
I would also add, let me get to that, that list. We are told that there is information in there about the, what was it?
The turnaround, the
The,
drop-off.
the traffic, that is already in there. So I would say the prohibit outdoor speakers, stadium lights, the hours of operation as given in that report, as given in the staff report, and I think that would probably be sufficient from my view. The maximum number of horses, I think I'm less concerned about that than the lighting and the hours of operation vis-a-vis traffic. The
Leo,
lighting, the noise, and the hours of operation, to reference that as the conditions. And simply repeat what is in the staff report, because again, I always stress this. I simply do not believe that just because it's in the staff report, it happens, especially if you have an exhibit that specifically says the applicant will address concerns with recommended conditions of approval, and yet the county didn't put them in the conditions of approval. As a layperson would say, well, that suggests the county wasn't interested in putting them in as conditions of approval, and therefore they aren't conditions. And they have less enforceability or meaning to the, and again, my concern is for the neighboring property owners and the community as a whole. Thank you.
All right, this is Rob. I'd like to speak on that. If we entertain that no outdoor speakers, do you have the size of speaker? Do you have the wattage of the speaker? Do you have the placement of the speaker that you'd like to put in there? Because that's pretty general. And that would shut off everything. Let's say they have an announcement or something, and that could be considered an outdoor speaker. And so it could technically be a safety issue, as far as I'm concerned, to put something like that in there. It's a pretty general comment. And the same with the speakers, or the lights, they're gonna have to have security lights on there. I can see the part about not having no lights for an arena event at night, but once again, we already have a lighting policy. And so I don't think I would support that, because it's too general unless you have some specifics that you would like to put in there.
Okay, Kathy Julian, for the record, the stadium lights, I think that, well, I would throw this back to the applicant. But frankly, this essentially says what you are telling me, Chairman, is that there's these promises made during that meeting and referred to in a staff report really have no meaning.
No, not
And so you might as well
necessarily.
take this summary of the neighborhood meeting out, because it has no relevance, because there's nothing there based on what you're saying there. So I would, the outdoor speakers, let's ask the applicant if they were planning on having any kind of outdoor speakers. Maybe this is not an issue. My impression was that this was not going to be like a show stadium. So it's simply giving comfort to the neighboring property owners that it will not be a commercial show stadium.
Mr. Chair, if I could, and I agree with you, if we are going to, if this board chooses to add such conditions, we need to well define each of those conditions. For example, I don't think our code defines stadium lighting, so we would need very specific direction in terms of what that means. I know in the past we have prohibited amplification, sound amplification, and if the applicant is amenable to such a condition, I think certainly we can craft that language.
Amplification I would be okay with, yes. Yeah. But speakers themselves, that's pretty general, and that could be taken out of context.
Anne Marie Lane for the record. The applicant, you're correct. This is not a traditional stable where there's ongoing lessons for commercial shows or viewing. It's not a place that people are being invited to come watch at the arena. This is a therapeutic facility for treatment. And so the applicant has no desire to have any kind of amplification and would agree to that condition. And however, county staff would find it best defined for outdoor stadium lighting, what the applicant wants to do is ensure that our neighbors feel heard and understood that we're not intending to put in arena lights for show, for drawing in a stadium that people would sit and watch, if that makes sense.
That does make perfect sense.
Okay.
To me.
And Kathy Julian for the record, and I truly appreciate that approach by the applicant. I think this is a very responsible application and responsible party making the application. But I simply want to have some level of comfort for the neighbors put into the conditions before I vote for this, which would be simply repeating the hours of operation, again, if the applicant is okay with that, and making a reference to no amplification in a speaker system, and I don't know, no arena light. I know I would defer to someone else on how to refer to the light question.
Did you propose to light the covered arena?
Or just the indoor lighting for the indoor arena?
They are still in the funding operations, so the way that I drafted it in my recommended conditions stated that it was the intent of stadium lighting is prohibited, and that the applicant is required to submit a detailed lighting plan to the county that shows that all lights meet residential adjacency standards.
Right. I guess I should let.
I would be happy with that language put into the conditions.
Yeah, because you're going to have to, in your barn, you're going to have some lighting. It's a safety issue. So there has to be some kind of outdoor lighting, some kind of lighting that's going to go outdoors.
So this is
Right,
Julie
so-
Olander for the record. Our requirement is that it's down shielded, then that's just
Right.
code. So I would think that that would suffice for what they're going to have on property, and that would already be required, already in our code. So I'm not sure we need anything specific concerning lighting. I mean, if they want to do something exceptional, then that's where I would put something in the conditions that's beyond what code is. And the same thing with amplified speakers. Our code speaks to noise and lighting, and if they wanted to do something beyond what our code allowed, then that's the kind of item I would put in a condition. So I can put in the hours of operation, but I'm not sure we need anything for either sound or lighting.
I agree. In our master plan, it also calls out dark skies, so.
It does.
Kathy Julian, for the record, based upon previous proposals, we all know the difficulty of enforcing noise code, and that you need elaborate systems of measurement over time with specific equipment. So I don't think we can simply say, oh, it's in code. If there's a noise problem, people will report it and it'll be measured. I don't think that suffices here, and especially when we have an applicant very willing to put in a reference to no amplification of outdoor speakers. It just is nonsensical to me to simply defer to the code, which we know will be difficult to enforce.
Well, that's why, this is Rob for the record, I think that's why we have code enforcement officers to do this. It's way above my pay grade. Anyways, Mr. Lloyd would like to speak
If I
on it.
may, and To Board Member Julian's point, she is correct. I'm less concerned with the lighting. I think our lighting standards are pretty clear in code. Noise is a little more challenging. And if the applicants are agreeable, I think adding the conditions, no amplification of sound is appropriate.
Amplification sound.
Right.
Outside?
Outside amplification, yes.
So the inside barn that doesn't have any front or rear doors is okay, but the outside is not.
That's a good question. And if the applicant is amenable, I don't know if they have any if they're anticipating to have any amplification within the barn or not. I don't believe that was part of their request. If they're amenable to the condition of no amplification of sound, I would recommend that the board add that condition.
Okay, we have to, yeah, you have to speak on it.
Anne Marie Lane, for the record, the applicant agrees with that condition.
The amplification. Correct. Okay, that's fine. Okay, I'm good with that. All right, so the applicant's good with it.
Leo Harishny, for the record. I just had a brief question, and I suppose it's not going to be approved, but the horses that you use on site, there's no plan or expectation or process for one of your clients to bring their own horses on site? So they're only the horses used are the ones that you...
Jean Spada, Allgood. That is correct. We do not bring any outside horses on site. It's only the horses that are owned by the organization.
Okay, that's fine. Just wanted to add that.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion? Mrs. Julian, do you have anything?
No, except I would like to understand from staff, should at some point in time the applicant decide to put lights up in the outdoor arena, what could they look like? What would they need to be? I'd like that to be part of the record here. Because since we're not putting stadium lights, a prohibition, into the conditions, I would like to know what the public will see as far as what is acceptable.
If I may address lighting standards per code, we do require all lighting to be down-shielded. No spillover of lighting may occur on adjacent properties. Also, this is a residential zone, so any light standard would be limited to 12 feet maximum in height.
And all of that is, I might add to that, is in Article 414 of the code.
That's correct.
If somebody would like to look that up. Yes, ma'am.
This is the applicant. Applicant's representative, Anne Marie. I'd also like to reiterate that this use is not operating outside of 6 p.m. There is no reason for them to install, other than for facility safety, excessive lighting.
Okay. Well, we're just gonna do the amplification, and then you guys work that out with staff and all that stuff. So, somebody want to make a motion on this? Peter, you got it?
Yeah, Peter Gishan for the record. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 24-0016 for Lead with Horses, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, including the prohibition on noise amplification, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30. I further move to modify the development code standards applicable to parking and landscaping requirements as specified in the staff report.
Okay, so this is Rob for the record, just for clarification, were you talking on that amplification indoor, outdoor, or both? Or was this just outdoor?
At both, at the property.
At the property, so both, okay.
This is Julie Olander for the record. I just want to make sure we get there's 2 additional conditions we're putting in: the hours of operation, and that there shall be no noise amplification. Is that the wording we want to, is that what member?
Kathy Julian,
Yes,
for the
what would you
record,
like?
my intent was to add the hours of operations as well as a condition.
That's already.
And what is the wording you would like on the amplification? I'm having, there shall be no noise amplification. Is that redundant, or is that capture it?
That was captured. The hours are set in code. It's already.
Well, it's in the staff report, but.
It's in the staff report.
I just want to make sure I have the right wording for the amplification.
So
Shall we-
Peter, would you like to
Mr. Lloyd, do you have a comment on that?
I would look at legal, but I believe no noise amplification associated with this particular request. I think that would be sufficient.
Okay.
There you go.
All
Are
right,
you okay
I'll
with
add that. You got
motion
that?
maker?
So no noise amplification, and that the hours of operations are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week.
Perfect.
Sounds good. And this is Rob. I'll second that motion. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimous. That moves us on to the last item is 8G, special use permit, case number WSUP 24-0017, It's a cat shelter. Mr. Lloyd, please announce.
Will do. For hearing, discussion, and possible action, make sure I'm looking at the right one, give me a second. For hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit to expand an
Hey,
existing...
guys, can you guys please, shh. We're trying to have a meeting. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lloyd, sorry.
To expand an existing commercial kennel and allow for a new cat sanctuary to include the addition of a 4,000 square foot cat shelter, a 3,750 square foot indoor multipurpose facility, and a 5,000 square foot outdoor multipurpose facility at a site with an existing commercial kennel. Once again, representing Washoe County in this matter is Planner Julie Olander.
Oh, it's Julie Day. Julie,
Taking all
floor
the
is yours.
animals.
Totally.
Good afternoon, again, Julie Olander for the record. So this is a request for a special use permit to add a 4,000 square foot cat shelter, a 3,750 square foot indoor multi-purpose facility, a 5,000 square foot outdoor multi-purpose educational facility, at a site with an existing kennel. Commercial kennels are permitted with a special use permit in the South Valleys area where this is located in section 210-25, the old Washoe City Community Allowed Uses. The site is expanding over 10%, and that's the reason they need a special use permit. Some of you might be familiar with this one because it came before you in May of 2022, and it was approved. However, the permit expired, and they were not able to complete all the on-site sewage disposal system that needed to be done, all the work that needed to be done. So this is back before you, but you did approve it in May of 2022. The Canine Center is a rescue facility and has been operating since 2013, and the center currently fosters and shelters and trains dogs and that are in need of temporary homes before they're adopted, and then also for long-term care for dogs that are not adoptable. And this proposal is to do the same thing for cats. The request is, like I say, for a cat shelter in the indoor multipurpose and an outdoor facility. And the applicant has indicated the cat shelter will be completed first, and then the other facilities will be added as funds become available. The indoor and outdoor facilities will provide different settings and will accommodate varying weather conditions. Currently, they do all their training with the dogs in the asphalt parking lot, and that doesn't work with weather most of the time, a lot of the time. And currently, there is only one building on site, and that is for the dogs. And it was previously the Cattleman's Restaurant, and I said the paved area. And so here's a photo of the site. And right now, all that's going on here is a dog shelter. And this is the parking lot that they would like to turn into the indoor and outdoor facility for, basically for training of dogs. The parcel is surrounded, the surrounding parcels are master plan commercial and have a regulatory zoning of commercial. There's a cemetery located to the southwest of the parcel, and it has a master plan designation of rural and has a regulatory zoning of semi-public public facility. And then there's a small parcel that's owned by Nevada Bell. And the site is in the South Valleys area, as I said, in the old Washoe City community known as Washoe City. And here's just the master plan and zoning, so you can see what's around the property. And that PSP is where the cemetery is. And then the PS that's a little smaller, that's where Nevada Bell site is. The entrance is off of 395, and which is classified as a minor arterial by NDOT, and the applicant has indicated that the proposed buildings will result in 28.73 peak hour trips, which is below the 80-hour trips required, threshold required for an traffic impact study. The applicant has further indicated that traffic from the center will not impact the network in the area, and there's no need for any roadway changes. Parking-wise, the area around the shelter is paved, as you saw with all those pictures, and they have at least 90-plus parking spaces. And per our code, the commercial kennels is required for every 1.25 animals. One parking place is required. And then with ADA, it's for every 6 parking places that they're required to have an ADA spot. The applicant is primarily planning to xeriscape the site and incorporate a low water intensive native plant landscaping. It will need to meet the 20% of, they are not asking for any modifications on the landscaping, so it will meet the 20% coverage. Here's sort of a layout of the site. The yellow is where the cat shelter is, and the 2 pink colors are where they're proposing to put you can see the amphitheater sort of area that they're proposing, and then the other area for the indoor facility. And then the purple or blue is sort of where the existing center is. That's where the Cattleman's restaurant used to be. And then you can see the parking is sort of arranged around it, and then they're going to have a garden area. And then this is about the elevations of the Cat Center. And then a layout of the floor, what they're planning to do. The applicant, and this applicant is also doing active fundraising to provide, to raise funds for these additional buildings, the outdoor and indoor buildings for the cat shelter. They have the funding for that primarily, but they're also trying to raise funds for the other buildings. And when funds become available, they will apply to the building department. The applicant also understands that, and if any of these buildings increase over 10% of what's being proposed today, that they will have to come in and amend this special use permit. And I have also given them the 4 years to obtain this permit because of the NDEP problems, and then also the challenges in fundraising, and that this is a nonprofit, so we're trying to provide them some leeway to raise the funds that they need to add these other buildings that they are proposing. The site, the neighborhood was noticed with 34 notices went out, and within 750 feet of the site. Various departments and agencies reviewed the application, and any with conditions are included in your conditions of approval. Staff can make all the findings again, and I have a possible motion, and then the applicant's representative and the applicant is here for a presentation. No presentation? Are you doing a presentation?
I can
if
it's needed.
If you need a presentation, they have one, or they're just available for questions. But since this was heard before, just 2 years ago, I feel like the board probably has a good sense of what this is about. But I'm available also.
Okay. Do you guys need a presentation from the applicant? Would you guys request? Do you want one? Ms. Julian, do you want a presentation from the applicant?
No, I don't need one.
Okay, then we'll move on to, thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment in chambers or Zoom.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant or planner?
Leo Horishny, I just have one brief question because I wasn't here for the initial. And so this whole presentation today is the same one that was proposed in May of 21.
Julie Olander, for the record, yes, it's primarily the same. I added a few other things in there, extending the permit for 4 years and some of the changes.
okay.
But otherwise, it's the same request that was made 2 years ago.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Peter Gishon for the record. Can you just clarify what the traffic and roadway comment was? An approved occupancy permit shall be obtained from NDOT for access. Must it have one already, or because it's growing in size, the permit needs to be modified?
I will ask our senior engineer to respond to that one, since she's available.
Thanks for hanging out.
Janelle Thomas, Senior Licensed Engineer for the record. So when the use changes or intensifies, that application will have to go through NDOT to make sure that that driveway is of adequate width and those sorts of things.
There's no chance that this would require like some deceleration lane and major
Correct.
improvements to the
That would just need to be, that's just a confirmation that we require when we have projects that are adjacent to the NDOT right away.
And one more, I guess, for Julie, Peter Gishon for the record. The same 4-year issue applies. It looks like there are multiple different facilities, so basically everything has to be permitted within the 4 years?
That is correct, and I've explained to the applicant and the applicant's representative, they have make choices, choose to expand them beyond the square footage that we have before us today, that if it's more than 10%, they'll have to come back in to amend the special use permit to add that square footage.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Ms. Julian, do you have anything?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
I will. Leo Harishny, for the record. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during this public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approves with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 24-0017 for a canine rehabilitation center and cat sanctuary, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110-810-30, consistency, improvements, site suitability, issuance not detrimental, or effects on a military installation.
Do we have a second?
For the record, Don Christensen, I'd like to second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. All right, that brings us on to item 9, chair and board items, future agenda items. Thank you, Julie. Does anybody have anything that they want to request from staff? Maybe, Ms. Jillian?
No, nothing?
Nothing? Okay, all right. Then we'll move on to B, request, that was future agenda items, request information from staff. Anybody have anything on future or request information from staff? Nope, hearing none. Legal, report on previous board adjustment items?
I wanted to report on one. It wasn't a board item, however, it affects the board. I know that a number of care of the infirm administrative permits come before you. We will be taking an amendment for second reading on next week to the Board of County Commissioners to change the who can write a prescription. We're opening it up now, nurse practitioners as well as
Physician's assistants.
Thank you, physician assistants can also write that prescription.
I think that's a wise choice. Thank you.
That is all I have, but one reminder, we are having the BOA and PC training next Monday, this coming Monday. If you can make it, it'll be upstairs in Mount Rose Conference Room at noon on Monday, and food will be provided.
Wonderful, thank you. Anything from legal? Nothing from legal? Okay, let's open up the last public comment. Do we have any more public comment?
No further public comment.
All right, it's 4:34, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.